there's our trim. And I mean, seriously, when you see the detail of this, every little line and every little swirl that's in there, and the trims come in 2 different sizes. So we use them as trim around something. We use them as projects.
Sorry.
They're all in the booth. There's bigger ones that you can use as a border, or you can use it as a ledge or a shelf to sit something on. But that's what makes these really unique to work with. And we can alter these. So I'm going to cut the medallions out of something other than metallic. I'll color, what if I use glossy on this one? Let's use alcoholic cardstock, because you don't always have to use glossy paper. I mean metallic. You can use glossy, you can use anything you want, even inked. But we still have to mist it, even though it's glossy. Okay? Go down on this one. 3 times. I don't care about that.
So you don't even cut your paper?
That would be really a waste. I'm not going to cut my paper to cut my paper. I'm just going to cut the paper, and then I have the rest of the paper to then cut the paper. Yeah. So here we have these medallions, and these medallions are awesome. They're even more detailed, so my janky die pick may not work. Good gravy. I need to find a legit tool. Let's go into Ted's drawer doom. There we are. You never know what's in that drawer. All right, so die pick. I'm actually picking from into the die out, and that's what gets it just to pop. So these ones look like resin. That's what I like about kind of changing up my paper. They have that whole kind of ceramic look. Pretty neat, right? Yeah. Just by changing up your paper, you really get a totally different look for those. And I'll ink that as well, and you'll see how we can even change the glossy. That's just glossy. That's just this one. But wait till you see when that's inked, it'll look like leather. It'll go from plaster to leather. All right. So that is the basics of 3D. Now, I'm telling you, there are some really cool 3Ds coming your way. Really cool. This was the beginning. These were already exciting, but then it even became more exciting. I'll emboss this one real quick, because it's one of my favorites. All right. Stay organized. Stay organized. Okay. This one, let's go with a large piece. So this one is called Riveted, and if you look at the folder before I emboss it, you'll see that the folder itself looks kind of dented, and that's because it is. There are dents built into this mold. So when we emboss this piece of paper, it's going to give us a realistic look of dented metal. So I'm going to place that in, place that down, 3D 3 times. Even this takes too long. Can you go faster? The original Vagabond is so much faster.
It's faster than this one.
The original one? Oh, absolutely. Oh yeah. But the original one didn't know any better. Like this one you can't break. Vagabond 2 you can't break. You can try to put whatever it knows better. Vagabond 1, it doesn't know any better. You try to put something in, it'll take it. It doesn't know. It could be a toy, a pet, it could be anything. It didn't know any better. But this is our background. Now what's cool about this is that this background changes from this to this simply by adding a layer of paint. So I'll show you how we can alter these. All right. Now one other thing I want to talk about before I put this away is for people that die cut, because it's probably one of the most emailed questions I get all the time. Because if you're a die cutter and you own dies, it's just the nature of who we are to want something more detailed and bigger and doilies and lace and funky flowers and all of that. But one of the things that is a challenge about dies that have a lot of detail is their ability to cut it out. Right? And some people are, you go on YouTube, they're shimming the cereal boxes and all. Don't shim your machine, okay? Because eventually you will break your machine, right? It's gonna let you do it a few times, but you are wearing down the roller more than you should. You shouldn't be shoving cereal boxes. I mean, if you're shimming with a piece of cardstock, that's not a problem, no problem. But people are shoving like little cereal box lids and like super thick stuff to get it to cut, and that's just going to put too much pressure on the machine. So there are things that they have for this. So Sizzix has what's called a precision base plate. Now, back in the day when they first launched it, it was awesome. Then they came out with a different version, and it's horrible. It is gray. It is made out of like a slate material, so it's almost like a granite, and when you cut into it, it actually cuts into that slate every single time, and it will leave marks on your cardstock. For those that have that one, you know just what I'm talking about. It's horrible. So So do I. So I said to Sizzix, I'm done. I'm not using that. It's terrible. You need to come up with something better. And they did. So this year they released a chrome precision base plate. Here's what it is. Where did I put it? Did I bring it out already? Here's the packaged one. Here's this one. This is my home. This probably has about 200, 250 cuts on it already.
Really?
And it doesn't leave a single mark on this at all. So it will never mark. It won't leave a scratch. It won't leave anything on it. So for me, it's like, I don't mind buying something that I never have to replace. And that's what I didn't like about the other one. I'm like, I understand we have to replace these eventually. That's just what it is. But I shouldn't have to buy a $30 plate that I have to replace. So finally they fixed it. It does suck that it took a little too late. But what this does is this is going to act as our bottom cutting pad. So I'm still going to put in my thin die adapter, right? Whatever you're using for thin dies, your Big Shot, your Vagabond. This is now my bottom cutting pad. And I'm going to take whatever I'm going to cut. Maybe we do this. Maybe we want to cut out of this colorful background. That'll be cool. And it goes right onto the metal, metal to metal. And it's just going to cut through that.
So the other one was like a stone.
Terrible. It's garbage. Yeah. Sorry, Sizzix, but it's terrible. And it cuts into it, and then when you use it, those cuts actually go into your paper. So if you use it for other things, you get these random lines through your paper, and that's because it's pressing into all those gouges. I mean, this did nothing. There's nothing on there. There's no die cut, and that cut all the way through the paper. It's awesome. So I just like to tell you, this is not mine, by the way, this is not my product, but I just like, it's a public service announcement because there are so many of my own dies that I just didn't use anymore. Because I'm like, I don't want to cut that thing out. Like, I don't know if it's going to work. I don't want to shim it. I'm not going to use that other thing. And this, like, now I just use anything because it will cut through. This is what it looks like, by the way, which, sorry, again, not the best packaging because you would never have a clue that this is this. But that's what it is. And don't use the sticker side, right? Use the metal side. But it's, to me, it's a game changer. What's that?
It'll cut foil.
It'll cut foil, it'll cut thin metal, it'll cut fabric. So if you want to cut felt or fabric with your thinlets, you can with that.
Wow.
It'll cut fabric because it's giving a rigid surface. It wouldn't cut fabric on this because the blades go into it and then it just comes back out. I'm telling you, game changer. You like dies. So there was your public service announcement for die cutting. All right, we're gonna get into altering these, and then we'll do some alcohol lifting. Ooh, that was loud.
Take a picture of them.
Are you going to show us everything that Mac can do?
And then some.
Thank you. I've been watching videos forever on it.
And more.
On that Mac? Oh, that Mac.
And
I am walking out the door with one of those today. Oh, they're awesome.
You'll have nightmares of why you did. And I don't really say that about any products because products can take it or leave it. This is probably the most important thing I've ever designed in my whole career. Because it solved every problem that I had for making, which I think for any of us is space.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I think the biggest challenge I had as a maker is finding the space to make. Because it doesn't matter how big your table is, you are working in this much space because all your crap just comes in. Doesn't matter where you put it, how you set up. It's the truth. Like you can get it all set up, right? You can light a candle, put on music, whatever you're doing. But once you start making stuff, like this stuff just like creeps in on you. And before you know it, you're like over here just trying to find a little space to watercolor something. It's the truth. I'm one of you. It was the most challenging thing, and that is why I wanted the media mat. So the media mat is tempered glass, right? So you can hammer on it, you can cut on it, as long as you're not using surgical steel, right? Because surgical steel will leave a mark in there. It won't damage it, it'll leave a little scratch, but people kind of freak out about this too. This is like a cutting board in your kitchen. First time you cut on it, you're gonna see it. Doesn't mean it doesn't work as a cutting board. So this is not something you're hanging on your wall, or if it is, then hang it on your wall. But if you're gonna use it. Like that's what it's supposed to be. It's a usable space. And it was really designed so you had a space to make. That's what it was. And it was really thought out. I wanted it to be raised off the table, just a little bit, so it has these little feet on there. Those little feet also keep it from skidding around. But the biggest thing really was when I pushed something over the edge, it couldn't come back. unless it knew how to jump, it can't come back. Because that's really the problem, right? We put something somewhere and it just creeps back. It can't creep. Just that little edge is going to keep everything off. So you'll see when I'm using something, I just push it off my mat. It's my space. So let's talk about how the mat is kind of designed. All right, let me turn this on. There we go. All right.
What's the name of that light again?
Stella.
Stella.
Yeah. It's named after his daughter. All right, so the media mat, black area. I chose black because, well, I prefer that. I think that when I'm working on something, that provides me the best visual look. I can see my colors better. I don't know, it's just, everybody has their opinion. This one's mine. I happen to like that I can work on a black space. This side has a non-stick craft mat. That craft mat's gonna be really important for several things that I'll show you of how we can work with our mediums. And if you peel this off, it actually reveals a palette area, right? Now that palette area is very cool. We can do some different things with it. And this mat is silicone back, okay? That silicone is to keep it from skidding around. So even if you didn't want to use it here, if you, for whatever reason, wanted to just put it right in the middle, you could and it wouldn't slide around, and it's white. Now they sell replacements of these because there again, as a maker, I use this for gluing, glittering, messy stuff. So if I'm gonna do a collage, right? So let me collage something real quick. I'll collage on this frame. Let's use some collage paper.
And that mat comes with it.
Yes, it does. Yep. So it comes with one mat and you can buy replacements. And I'll show you why. So when I'm working on this, I'm just going to do some collage paper. I don't want to put a bird on it. The bird will be way too big. So I'll just take some paper. This is collage paper. And collage paper is just a thin printed paper. Okay. It's kind of crunchy. But what's cool about this is it's designed for mixed media. It also comes plain, so you can stamp on this. You can run it through your inkjet printer and print your own photos or anything on it. But what's interesting about this material is I can take a wet brush. I can decide, okay, I want to go in and add this blue flower. I'm just going to take a water brush or just a wet paintbrush, and you're just going to paint around it, and that's just going to dissolve this paper. Almost like a napkin, but not really, because if you've ever tried to collage with a napkin, the whole thing falls apart, right? One brush stroke and you have just a bunch of pulp, okay? This is just gonna go right around, so you don't have to do any fussy cutting at all. You're just gonna use water. And what that's also gonna do is it's gonna fray the edge of what we have, all right? Now this only dissolves with water. It doesn't dissolve with glue. So then when I wanna go and collage it, I can take some collage medium. Collage medium is just a fast drying collage medium. It has a drying time of now. That's really why I did it. It's different than multi-medium, which Rangers had, different than gel medium, which is really wet, different than even like a golden gel medium. I wanted something that when I put it on, it was just dry and I can move on to the next layer. So if you're an indecisive crafter, not the medium for you, okay? If you're one of those people, I know, you know who you are, because you're just like, wow, this is a big dimension. Yeah, when you glue this down, that's where it is. You can't put it down and say, I'm gonna move it over here, because you can only move it with your mind, because it won't physically go. But what is great if you like to collage is that I can just take a brush. Now this is a collage medium brush, so it's just kind of a little flex brush, and I'm working on the matte part. I'm just gonna place that down, and then I'm just gonna go right over the top of it, and that's going to dissolve right through that paper. It's going to make everything seamless, but it's never going to dissolve the paper itself. It's never going to tear up this paper. Only water does that. And now I have a piece that just has become part of my other background. So it doesn't show any of that white paper. Tissue wrap did that. Like, this was really what I wanted when I did tissue wrap. The tissue wrap was the closest thing I could get. And then when I found this paper, I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. Because it becomes totally translucent, right? He's warming up, guys. You heard his sound. Warming up.
This is the one on mine.
Is that all right?
All right. A couple of things. I'll talk a little bit when he's talking, but not much. These are our 3 brushes for collage. This is for small, medium, large. Here's why I like this. It warms up. In the morning it's really short and sweet, and then it's a little longer, and by afternoon
these little brushes. It's got a hole in the middle.
Oh my gosh. I told him at dinner, I was like, man, you need like a job.
Stuff that sucks up the excess. I don't know if these are them, but he has some brushes it's got a hole in the middle and it sucks up any excess.
He puts that little emphasis now.
Yeah.
Alright, let's do we're just gonna do, I'm not gonna do a full collage, that would be boring. But I'll just show you on glue. So when people are gluing things, what I notice with a lot of times is that pretty much use too much glue, right? Everybody thinks that less is more is better. Not necessarily. If you're going to collage, the nice thing about doing any kind of collage is that having the right mediums. Awesome. Thank you. That's awesome. That's really sweet. Thank you very much. Mickey and coffee.
Mickey and coffee. And destined to be.
That is a double whammy. I love these. Thank you. Good. Cool. Huge fan of the mouse, people, just so you know.
Oh,
Love Disney.
Disney.
I go every
thing on
month.
Facebook
I go
is
every
Disney.
single month. Yep, even if it's a day. It's the only place I can go where this stops.
Oh, that's good.
That's it. My one place. And people are like, you find peace and calmness at Disneyland? Like, I go into that park and I'm just like, I can totally relax. Isn't that weird? I find, no?
I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I love it.
That
People
you
are like,
have
how do
a
you
place
relax
like
there? I'm like, because Walt was a genius. And I'm not trying to think of, oh, that's cool, or everywhere I look, I'm like, because I'm already looking at the bottom of your shirt, I'm like, that would make such a cool stencil right there. That shirt, I swear to you. It's sickness. It's like, stop. Okay, so, collage medium. Pretend this was a book, a canvas, whatever you're doing. Most people would like think they're icing a cake, right? And that was me. When I did altered books back in the day, I thought like Mod Podge was your friend and I would mop it around everywhere, okay? The problem when you get too much glue on a project and you have a paintbrush is that all you're doing is kind of moving it around, right? You're not actually getting this out. These brushes are actually designed because the inside of them are hollow. See that little gap right there? So when I want to pick up the collage medium, I can stand my brush up and just drag it right across the top, and it's going to pick up all that extra glue inside the brush, and then I can put it back into my jar. All right? So that was the all the brushes are that same way, right? So when I put this on there, when I put my medium, I can place my paper down, decide where you want it, because you're going to get that little moment, and then we can go in and we can do our top layer. And we don't have to worry about this moving around, slipping and sliding. That's the beauty of collage medium. And you can just do another layer, you can do paper, you can do tissue, you can do whatever you want. I mean, every layer. And then this is just going to become totally translucent. So it's going to be whatever your background is, right? Whether it's going to be brown or blue or printed or whatever. If you are doing a collage project like this or any of these, my advice, don't ever put your brush in water, okay? That's the biggest thing. You get too much water in your brush, everything you glue is going to be lasagna, right? Your paper is going to ripple because you're putting too much water in it. So all you need to do, don't look and talk at the same time. Get yourself a baby wipe, I'm sure you have that, or a wet paper towel will be fine. And you can take your brush, wrap it in that, and this will stay wet for 24 hours. So if you're doing collage, just put your brush in there. When you need to come back to it, go back to it. And then when you're done, you just clean it with water. That's it. But if you do any kind of collage work, don't get in the habit, and I see people do that, because every layer you do will be ripply. Because you're just putting water in there. And everything is just going to be bumpy. Collage medium glues anything you can think of. Literally every project you see here is done with collage medium. Even the pearls down here, everything. Because not only does collage medium dry clear, but it will shrink when it dries. It is a medium that's designed that if I put a daub of collage medium on the back of a button and stick it down and you get that glue ooze, that glue ooze will shrink behind the button as it dries. So you will see nothing. Like all those pearls, you don't see big chunks of glue everywhere. And that's what I love. I can glue glass to glass, glass to metal, metal to plastic, wood to paper, fabric, you name it. And that's why I did it, because I was tired of what glue is going to be what. Now, Collage medium will also let me work on top of it. So this frame is done the same way. I was able to go in and add ink over the top of it, crayon over the top of it, and that was another thing that I found challenging with most gel mediums. Gel mediums became an instant resist, right? You try to put something on it, too bad, you had gel medium, it's gonna work as a resist. Collage medium is designed to allow you to add color to it. Because, well, if you can't ink it, I don't wanna do it. So, you know, yeah, that's really the whole idea about working with the different mediums. And I like to tell people that because sometimes you just don't really understand what is what, which gets us back to the mat. If I have something gluey and gross, I can pick this up and I can set it aside to dry, right? So that's why I like to have a second one of these mats, so I can always put one in its place.
Sorry.
If something dries on it, right? Let's say for whatever reason, I don't know, you accidentally get glue all over your glass, because that's what you do. I normally like to keep the mess over here. I like to keep this kind of a little landing area, but let's say you're Ted, and that's how you'd work. You'd put all your stuff in one pile and don't care. For those that don't know Ted, Ted owns this booth, and if you ever watch him demo, he's a man. He doesn't care about anything. He doesn't care what goes where. That is why every time I have to demo for him, I have to travel in a day before the event just to clean these drawers. That's all I did on Thursday. Just clean, because that's Ted. I mean on Friday, yeah. So let's say you get something dry on here. Well, a couple of things. There are some great media tools that we did for the media mat. Okay, this is a media edge, media scraper, sold as a set. The edge is made, it's got plastic in it. So it's plastic and glass, so you can kind of hear that sound. Those glass crystals is going to keep this always sharp. It's never going to flatten or dull like a plastic scraper will, because it's got that glass in it. And that's going to allow you to go in and scrape the mat, but we can also go in and scrape any of this medium right off of the glass. Like a razor blade, but not a razor, because you can still put your finger over the top of it. But it will take all that off of your mat. Now let's say you get something gunky on here, like a smudge of glue or gesso or whatever, that just doesn't come off. Hand sanitizer will take anything off of your media mat, right? So if you get something on there, you can just take a little blob of sanitizer, take your cloth, and that will remove dry glue, gesso, anything off of your media mat. Yep. So, pretty simple. So let's talk about the two substrates, the two surfaces. The edge, by the way, that's for people that just want to be a little bit more precise. Not for me, but sometimes. And it's designed to hang off the edge of your mat, right? So it will slide and give you this straight edge. One edge is beveled, and that is so if I'm going to draw a line, I can draw right up against my edge. My pen will touch that. The other side is metal, so if I'm cutting, I can cut onto the metal side, right? Now let's talk about this edge in this mat. I wanted this edge because sometimes I just want to line things up, usually die cuts, right? If I have a background and I'm going to put like a word, I want to line it up, and I'll just use this for reference. But because these two products are made in two different factories, sometimes you might get a mat that doesn't line up with your edge. And here's how you fix that, all right? This is an adjustable edge. There are two screws in here. So if for whatever reason they don't line up, you simply loosen these screws. You don't have to take them out, just loosen them. Adjust your edge to where it lines up to your mat and tighten. That's it, right? Because they're designed to line up, but because they're two different factories, like, well, I can't solve the world's problems, but I can just say, here's a good solution. Let's make this so it is slightly adjustable. So if you need to adjust it, just loosen it, line it up, tighten it, and you're back in business, all right? So the reason we have these two surfaces is because it's really important. Let's talk about inking, okay? If you do watercolor, let's take a marker, let's take crayons, because you need to know how this works. I've demoed this for the last 2 days, and more people have it, and they're like, oh my God, I've been using it wrong. And yeah, you have, if you really don't know this, because there's a reason these two surfaces exist. First thing, if you like to watercolor, this square is really designed for any mini ink pad, right? You can go in and make a full palette with your favorite little cube inks from any company that's just gonna fit right in there. But how this works is you can see that this ink goes on totally different. Totally different. Same thing with a marker. If I take a marker and I make a palette, or I go in and I color on my glass, See how much color is actually transferred onto the glass? This won't dry. It won't dry on either thing, but if you're watercoloring, you can fill up your palette and leave it there for a week, a month. The ink is never going to dry on that glass. So you can come back and watercolor whenever you want. This, you don't actually get to see the true color of what it is. Even though it's white, it just can't stick onto it the way it does glass. That's why I wanted a glass palette and not a craft palette. That's really why I wanted to do it. So if you're watercoloring, it's going to my water brush. Let's take a piece of watercolor-ish paper. Oh, wow. Good luck. I didn't know I was going to do that. If I pick up color off of my craft sheet, it's going to give me some color. But if I pick up color off of this, it's going to give me so much more color because there's actually more ink that transfer than it did here. So if you're watercoloring, this is going to give you that vibrant color from an ink pad, unlike what you would think is going to happen on a craft sheet. It's very weird, but true. If you have anything pigment-based, maybe you have distressed crayons, maybe you have gelatos, right? Anything like that, any of your pigment sticks, put those on your glass as well, right? Just take those can sit there as long as you want, and then if you want to use those as watercolor, well, it's going to watercolor exactly the same way your inks do, right? So you can put any medium you want on the glass. So that being said, why do we need this? Okay, other than glue, why do we need this? Well, because if you use any kind of distressed ink or oxide to create a background, you must work on this. And here's why. Let me just clean this off. Oh, all that ink. It's a shame, isn't it? Yeah. Because we'd have a piece of paper in there. We'd be dabbing here. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about these two surfaces side by side. Okay? If you're going to do backgrounds, maybe you've seen me do backgrounds where I'm using ink pads and we do our little prints, right? So let's take something really gross. Oh, that'll be good. All right. I'm going to place ink here and ink here. Now I can already know that yes, it looks cool there. Don't let that fool you, because I know everyone's like, but it's so much prettier when it's on the black. Like, but it's not. It really isn't. Okay. When I place my inks, and this is oxide or ink pads, it doesn't really matter. When I try to do a background, this is not going to hold ink the way this will. If I spray this ink with water, all these are just going to start to migrate together, right? Once paper goes into it, it becomes mud. This, never. Okay? So when I work with this, if I go in with my paper, it's mud, right? Anything that goes back, I can't use that again. I have to just trash it. This, my ink is actually suspended on my sheet, right? So I can go in and print as many times as I want on this. And this is why I included that little square, because that's all you need to go in, take my paper, because that first print's cool, but that is not going to be so cool when I go back in. And that's just wasted. Where do I have a tag? Every time I open tags, I need a new pack of tags. All right. Oh, they're right in front of me. So if I print here, everything stays. So it's going to allow me to dry, go back and print, dry, go back and print, dry, go back and print. And that is why you need just that little amount of it. You don't need a lot. I don't need the whole thing. And I really found that what I love about the Media Mat more than anything is, as I said, it defines my workspace. I do messy here, and I usually leave this clean. I leave this area clean so I can take and put my project down. I can do all of my embellishing, doing all of my stuff here. And if I want to work on my background, I'm putting my ink here, I'm drawing here. So I'm not working in my own mess. That's really what it was. I found that, you know, when I had this in the middle of me, I just was always working in it. Everything just became a giant mess. Now let's talk about blending, right? I need to add some color because that's too good to pass up. I'll do it once, but not twice, sorry. I'm just gonna dry a layer. Just gonna put a little ink on there. All right, so let's talk about cleaning up your mat, especially for those that have it, don't have it, thinking of getting it. I need to tell you a few things. Okay, this is a silicone mat. It's pretty resilient. Like you can put it in the dishwasher if you got yours really disgusting or whatever. But what you need to remember on your mat is, well, one, my towel is really gross. If you see it kind of cloudy and hazy, it is. So sometimes you have to go with glass cleaner, a paper towel, something, and just clean it off with something clean. Like if you keep using an ink rag, you're just putting ink everywhere. clean that off, clean this off. If you do any kind of ink blending, believe it or not, you're going to get a better blend. That's my collage medium. Get that off. You're going to get a better blend on your glass than you will on here. This is going to create drag, and this won't. And it's weird because, let's face it, I've worked on a craft sheet for, I don't know, 13 years, right? That's all I did. And then working on a glass surface, my table at home is glass. So I found myself like always pushing my craft sheet aside and blending on the table, and that's when I thought, I should need to work on glass. But I'm like, but I still need a little bit of craft sheet, because what am I going to do? And it all came together. I'm telling you, if you have one thing in your creative life, it will be a space. I said it when I did the first video, and I've had some people, it is a game changer. It will change the way you make. It gives you a space, allows you to work with your stuff. When you are doing ink blending, man, it blends like a dream. Here's why. If I'm working on just a tag, I'll take any kind of paper. Well, let's do this one. This has some resist. If I go on glass, it's just like skating. It's just, you glide right across that glass, even with your ink pads, right? If you go onto a craft sheet, it's actually going to catch and drag onto the sheet, right? So you can see right away how hard that ink line is versus that. Because you're actually getting drag off of your sheet, so you're not gliding everything on there, it's literally stopping, and that's what's creating that hard edge, where on your glass, it just glides right across. It's crazy. What's that?
It kinks the corners sometimes.
Yeah, it just, this gives you more of a smooth blend. I'm not saying you can't blend on this, you can, but this gives you a smooth blend, this gives you a harder blend. And you can still see there's a lot of ink here and there's no ink there. So, now we know the medium map. Now let's dirty it up. All right, first thing, let's do alcohol lifting. Are we good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yes.
All right.
That's awesome. I saw that last night.
Magic, isn't it?
Yes.
Some magic stuff. All right. So let me clean this. So when I use alcohol ink, this comes off. Away. It's the only thing that you cannot use is alcohol ink. If you use alcohol ink on that, it is a multicolored sheet forever. Yes, and that's because the ink goes into that fabric and it actually stains the silicone. It's not staining the top, it's just going into the fabric and it's staining this, and so, but if you like that, Jennifer McGuire likes hers like that. If you watch her videos, she uses alcohol ink all over it, and I message her, I'm like, you know, and she's like, I'm okay with that. I'm like, oh my God. So many people watch it, and it's like, yeah, she likes it. That's surprising. She's so talented. She's ridiculously talented. Okay, alcohol ink. When we go in and alcohol ink, we're just going to do some quick backgrounds. I'll do several just to give you some ideas of what this is. If you haven't got bit by the alcohol ink bug yet, you're really missing out. It's so fun. And I love that, you know, these have been, I've done alcohol inks with Ranger for about 11 years now, which is crazy because a lot of people think that they're new. And in fact, it's just new to them. And that, I think, is what's always exciting about the industry is it's okay to have something new to you. You don't have to know everything and do everything at once. You can learn a new medium at any time. The thing about alcohol ink is that they are designed for non-porous surfaces. So their specialty are things like plastic, metal, glass, polymer clay, transparencies, all those cool little slick surfaces. That's where these really excel. They have a drying time of 7 to 10 seconds, so they dry very quickly, but they also react with one another. This is a highly flammable ink, so you always want to work in a well-ventilated area, blah, 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 don't work by candlelight, whatever. When you work with them, I normally like to match the lids to my inks. Ted doesn't, so he doesn't care, I don't care. He doesn't. I like to match up my caps because I don't like that, but I'm over it. Not really, can you tell? So every time I open the bottles, I'm just like, oh my God. Yeah, one is worse than the next. But here's the thing about these inks. The bottles, believe it or not, are designed to be left open. Okay? Even though I just said it has a fast drying time, if these were really clean, oh, you might see it in this yellow one. There's a little bead of ink sitting right on the top of that nib. Can you see that little line? Every single color does it. You can kind of see it in the orange, even though it's gunkied up. Every time you open the bottle, it will immediately suck ink from the bottle into the tip and keep it there. So it doesn't allow the air to go back into the bottle. So you can leave them open for literally hours, if not days, and they'll never evaporate out of the bottle. So when you use alcohol ink, leave them open, because you'll see that you'll have a lot more fun with them if you're not opening and closing, opening and closing, opening and closing. Leave them open. All right. Now, metallic mixatives are also part of the alcohol ink line. They're beautiful. They are metallic, designed for marbling. We have rose gold and gunmetal. Those are two new colors. And you can do some cool backgrounds with those as well. And then we have blending solution. Blending solution is to alcohol ink what water is to watercolor. It is what makes these inks blend together. Not to be confused with isopropyl alcohol or rubbing alcohol. You can also use rubbing alcohol, and I'll show you how, but they are two very different things. So I always like to demo that, because if you are a chronic YouTube watcher, you can get a lot of misinformation about a lot of things, and then you try it and you think, well, this isn't working, and that's just because someone told you something wrong. All right, so let's talk about substrates. I'm going to demonstrate eventually, I'll get there, I'm going to demonstrate the lifting. Okay? An alcohol lift ink is the newest product in the alcohol ink line, and it's designed to lift alcohol ink and allow you to stamp with it. In order to do that, you need to understand the difference between a porous and a non-porous surface, because that's the first thing that can go wrong. If you've been alcohol inking for years, you're probably familiar with alcohol ink cardstock that is glossy cardstock. Glossy paper is awesome with alcohol ink because, well, it's shiny and slippery, and it allows our inks to kind of move around. But this paper is actually the most porous paper you own in your craft room. It's more porous than watercolor paper. It's more porous than a manila tag. You can put any ink on glossy paper and it would actually be permanent. It would bond itself to that surface. So if I stamped with distress on here, that distress ink is not going to run around. It's going to be in the paper, which is crazy because you would think that if I stamp on glossy, it would all just rub off. It won't. Yupo is, I think, what has made most makers that are new to alcohol inks kind of breathe a sigh of relief, enjoy it. Yupo is a synthetic paper, okay? It's called Yupo, and it's actually plastic, but it's plastic that thinks it's paper. It has a little bit of tooth to it. You can watercolor on Yupo, you can use colored pencils, and of course we can use alcohol ink on it. And what I love about this, when I say synthetic, it is made of plastic. So we can't tear it, you can't do anything to it. It will still bond the inks, but it will not let the inks kind of absorb through it. You can die cut it. God, he's right there. He's gonna turn on this light. Watch. So the big difference between these papers, whether it's predictable.
Just wondering, sir, whether or not you needed anything.
No, I'm really good. Yeah, but thanks for a little dance time. I love it.
Breaky, you know, shaky. Just saying.
I love Ted. Yeah. I love it. No, I'm good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I know you're good. Respect.
All right. He loves that light. He turns it on. Normally he'll do a little dance. There's probably not a lot of room back there, but yeah, I can always tell. That's Ted. Ted is the owner of Stampers Anonymous. And yeah, so he manufactures, he owns the plant in Cleveland, he makes everything, him and his wife. His wife Michelle is here too. Yeah. But he owns this, he owns Inky, he owns Darcy's, he owns Northwoods. Yeah, he just bought Northwoods. So he's like, because he's a manufacturer, he saves a lot of these little stamp companies that have like come and gone, and he continues to make the art. He's a good guy, he really is. But that's Ted. You just gotta love him for Ted. Yeah. Predictable? Yes. Yeah. He loves the light. Okay, so back to Yupo. So Yupo comes in white. That's just white, regular thickness. It comes in translucent. Translucent, I would say, is like vellum, right? It's not gonna be see-through, it's gonna be cloudy, but it's beautiful if you ever wanna alcohol ink that and say wrap it and put it inside a glass vessel and put a battery-operated tea light, because it really shine through. It's absolutely stunning, right? Then the newest one is alcohol ink Yupo Heavy Stock, right? I reached out to Yupo. I love Yupo, but sometimes if I'm gonna die cut something like a butterfly or something I want on a card, I want it a little heavier. This is 144 pound Yupo. So it's like the thickness of watercolor paper, but it's Yupo. So the difference, this is just a sheet of it, and this is heavy stock. So you can pass around, you can touch it, feel it, sniff it, whatever. When I use Yupo, here's what you need to understand. Yupo's actually kind of expensive, right? It's not new to the art world. It's actually been in the art world for years, but they sell it in big pads. They retail from anywhere from 35 to 75 bucks for a pad of paper, but they're painting on it, right? So that's really why Ranger reached out to Yupo and said, hey, would you ever consider cutting it down into like card maker size? Because I don't think as card makers, even though we love it, we can't really justify a $35 pad of paper. even if it's the coolest thing ever. So it's still expensive. I mean, this retails for 10 bucks for 10 pieces, but as a maker, the first thing I do is I take my Yupo and I cut it in half. So now I have 20 pieces. Now it's only 50 cents. That's nothing, right? And this is a perfect size background for a card, perfect for most of my die cuts. All right, so now that Ted's not here, I'll tell you another thing I like about Yupo. He's not here, right? Okay. Yupo makes the best stencils. If you own any kind of die cuts at all, any of your thin dies, you can take your Yupo, regular Yupo, use your thinlit dies, cut it out, and it is a reusable stencil because it's plastic. If you've ever tried to cut plastic with a thin die, it doesn't cut clean, right? It cuts it, but then it leaves everything in the corner because like even a transparency is self-healing. This will cut totally clean like paper. You can use your inks on it, wipe it off, and reuse it indefinitely. So a lot of times I can take my favorite dies, happy birthday, whatever that is, cut that out, and now I've got a stencil for that, right? It can't be used with any kind of heavy medium, like a texture paste. You can't like use a palette knife over it. It's not rigid enough. Heavy stock probably would be. Yeah. That solved that now too, so. All right, here's the reason I want to talk about paper. When I go to ink this, I'm just gonna take alcohol ink, a little bit of felt, and we're just gonna go side by side so you see the difference. Okay, we're gonna take some inks, and I'm just gonna do this as a color reference. Just pick up some colors. I'm gonna squeeze, I have no idea how that even has a crush name. All right, it's insane. All right, put some colors on there, and then we're gonna go in and stamp. So we've got glossy cardstock, Yupo. First layer, both of them, beautiful. I would say on this, they're the same, right? If I saw this and be like, it's the same, I'll work with it. It's when you start layering that changes everything. Let's say we want to go in and add some other colors, right? We're gonna add a little, maybe some deeper blue, maybe a little deeper plum, right? When I start adding this is going to work and rework this layer. This is only going to get darker. It's still cool, right? But it's not going to give you the vibrancy of this, especially when you start going to town with color. If I went in and added a little bit of yellow, let's say, if I introduce yellow to this, you can see that I introduce yellow. If I introduce yellow to this, it just makes it darker. It's warmer, but it's darker. And then when we start dripping colors on there, Yupo is going to allow your color to actually open up. This is not. It's still going to react, but you're not going to get the vibrancy of that. So Yupo is a surface that can be used indefinitely with alcohol ink. This is only going to make it muddier. If I just keep inking and inking and inking and inking, it's just going to get to mud. If I do this, I can take all of this off and I could re-ink the entire thing, just going into my background. So this is what I love about working with alcohol inks and Yupo. You cannot screw it up. You can't. You can just keep going in and manipulating this, adjusting it, giving it totally new color values. And as we put this on there, here's another thing to understand about these inks. Alcohol inks are designed to spread out when they dry. So the longer you kind of give them kind of that movement, that little bit of play, it's going to something bright, right? You can create those effects. If you don't want those little dots, just kind of go around with your ink tool, kind of smooth them out, okay? If you're like, that's cool, yeah, cool. No, I want to change it. Okay, let's add something else. Ooh, that's good. That little pink and that blue, pushing that out, right? And then once you like it, just step away from the Yupo, okay? Work on another one, because it can get a little crazy.
You don't use a heat tool and dry it?
You can. No, you can, yeah. Alcohol inks are flammable, but only to open flame, right? And Yupo is heat stable.
Okay, so it won't warm.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Yupo's heat stable.
Okay.
It's crazy stuff. It is. It's like, it is magic paper, and I can see why everyone just went crazy for it. So let's do some other backgrounds. Let's take a piece of Yupo and let's put some color onto the mat. Okay, here we're just going to take some inks, do a little bit of a cooking show demonstration. Throw on some colors here. And then we're going to take some blending solution. Blending solution is going to give this movement. It's going to allow that when I go through, my colors have the ability to glide. And what I like about this particular technique is when I'm using Yupo and swiping through this, it can change with every single brush stroke, but you need that blending solution so my paper can move, okay? If I don't do that, my paper would stop onto my mat. splash of that. Let's go right through there. Let's take that way. So it's like a
Blending
paintbrush.
solution has things in it that the rubbing alcohol does not.
Correct, it has a resin in it. And that's what the resin is what's going to allow those colors to float. And I'll show you, because I'll use rubbing alcohol, because it's kind of cool on certain things. So on this one, well, let's do another background. Let's get out brown. Shocker, I know. I really tried to not use it, but you just got to be real with yourself. I love brown. All right. So here I'm going to take another piece of felt. When you're done with your felt, throw it away. Okay? Alcohol inks are still combustible, so whatever you use with alcohol ink, don't put them in a closed container. As far as like, I don't know. People have been saving felt for, I have no idea why you would do that, but just don't. Just throw it away when you're done. All right. So when I do a background, I just like to put some ink on there. Okay? Totally gets you over your fear of what's going to happen. What am I going to start with? Who cares? Whatever you do is going to look better than that. So now I'm just going to go in. Maybe I'll swirl some color on there. That has a little bit of teakwood in it. That's good. That's even better. That's good there. And we're going to just stamp this around. Right? Because you can manipulate it. You can kind of see what it is that you're doing for your background. Oh, let's put a little bit of indigo. And this is why you want your bottles open. See, I just keep jumping back. If you had them all closed, you wouldn't do that. You would be like, oh, well, look, this is good. Yeah. This just, it's all right there. See, that indigo is such a killer color. It's so deep. Look at that background. Teakwood. Teakwood is your friend. Yeah, teakwood is like a browny, caramely, rusty looking goodness. All right, we got some stuff down here. Let's see what happens with whatever ink we have down here. Let's put a little bit more down there. Okay, the thing to know about rubbing alcohol and blending solution. Blending solution, of course, is gonna blend. For example, if I wanted to blend this background, I can put some blending solution on here. Blending solution is gonna blend, lighten, and remove color. So you see, as soon as you put blending solution on there, it gets rid of the alcohol ink, right? But what it's actually doing is it's pushing it out to the side. So if you get alcohol ink on your clothes, you can take blending solution, it'll take it out. But what this is gonna do is this is actually going to blend the colors of my background, right? It's gonna start kind of pulling up those layers underneath it, and it really gives your background a totally different texture, right? You saw that first one kind of look really smooth. That blending solution just brings in that little accent, that little element. Let's say we do a background. There's got to be more Yupo here somewhere. All right, let's say we do a background that's really quite dark. All right, I'm just going to use whatever's on here. And just throw some stuff on there. You never know what you're going to get. Because you can always, yeah, it is. It's like a little cooking show. A little splash of this, a little bit of that. Just going to kind of manipulate these around. I love that little bit of green kind of poking through. Okay, so let's say you had a background like this. Okay, the thing to know about blending solution and rubbing alcohol. Rubbing alcohol, where did it go? Where did my little sprayer go? It's right here. There we are. Thanks. Rubbing alcohol will actually eliminate alcohol ink. Gone. It's like bleach. Okay, so when people on YouTube are saying, "Oh, use that instead of blending solution," to them I say thank you, because that means you're going to buy 3 times the amount of alcohol ink. Because as soon as you put alcohol on your background, all of your colors fade away. And then you have to go back and add more color. And here's why. If I go and spray this on here, you're gonna see that as soon as it touches it, it's just gone, right? But it's very cool. This is cool for a galaxy or whatever, but it still kind of goes in, and all it did was just dissolve that color. It's gone, so then it makes you wanna add more color. If you wanna keep that little splatter look, you can just spray this on, wait to get it the way you want, and then we can dry it, and that would freeze that in. And you can do that on any of those backgrounds, right? You wanna have those little dots, just spray that and dry it. And then you'll keep those little speckles. Pretty cool on that background, really galaxy-like. You never want to spray this, okay? This contains a resin that will stick to anything that it touches. So if you spray it and breathe it in, it will stick to the lining of your lungs. If you sprayed it in your eyes, you couldn't wash it out. This is just 90% or higher of rubbing alcohol. So if you sprayed it in your eyes, you would just not do it again. I mean, that's all. I mean, that's it. You're just going to close your eyes for a while and then just decide, I won't do that again. So let's talk about the cleanup. I like to use this a lot for cleanup because sometimes it gives me these really unpredictable backgrounds. Meaning I'm just gonna go in and I'm gonna spray whatever's on the mat, and I'm just gonna start taking that piece of Yupo and just start picking up my colors.
Is there a right and a wrong side to that?
There is not. Yupo is double-sided, so you can use either side, which I think is pretty awesome. Okay, now rubbing alcohol dries really quick. So you can see how it kind of gets cloudy right away, but look how it's picking up my color. It's picking up my color and it's allowing me to kind of build these layers in such an awesome way. And most of the time I end up liking my cleanup piece better than any background I did, because I'm getting kind of this cool little gradation of color. We're gonna use all of those backgrounds, except I'm gonna totally change this one, because that big thing of pink is driving me crazy. So let's go in with something a little darker, a little mushroom. Oh, that's making me happier. There we go. All right, I like that better. See, I love that you can just fix it, right? I'm gonna do a little spray. And then I want to add a little bit of blue. And then we're done. We're gonna do some lifting. You're only as good as your next layer with Yupo. Yeah, that's a cool galaxy to me. I like that one. Really awesome. Mysterious. Okay, when you're finished, get rid of all your stuff. Caps back on. This is where the little TED technique is actually quite helpful. Because now you don't have to match anything up. We're just going to get rid of these, put these back. I use alcohol ink for a lot of things besides just backgrounds. I use those a lot on metal. I use those a lot on glass. If you are a maker that likes to use glitter or sequins or microbeads or anything like that, remember you can use alcohol ink on all of those things. So especially around the holidays, like Halloween time, love a nice orange glitter, love a nice black glitter. Not metallic. I don't want metallic orange, that would be copper. Right? I actually want colored glitter. If I'm working at Christmas, I like the fact that I can make lime glitter or patina glitter or sailboat blue glitter. And all you do is take clear glitter, rock candy is what I use, put it in a jar, add a couple drops of alcohol ink, stir it up, and now you have colored glitter. I made pink glitter earlier because once it dries, you can have any color of glitter. This is wild plum glitter. So once you put it in and you stir it, it'll get like wet sand, and then as soon as the alcohol ink evaporates, it's glitter. So you can make 60 colors of glitter, yeah. Just from one, you can make one little batch. So I love making pitch black glitter, it's really cool. All right. Cool, so once these are back, we're gonna clean up our media mat. Just using a little bit of sanitizer, if I have any left. There we go. Oh, is that one? Oh, is there still some in there? All right. The reason I use hand sanitizer is going to actually allow me to clean up more. You saw with the rubbing alcohol how quick it dries. So if you just keep spraying rubbing alcohol, it's going to dry too quick on your mat. And sanitizer will just let you clean up all that goop right off your medium mat. All right, so we're going to get into some lifts. Oh, I should put my mat back. Go back. We're done. They're gone. This can go back. Okay, so now we have some very different backgrounds, right? And that really just depends on how you apply it. We've got this one that was done with the tool, kind of drifted on for a cool psychedelic background. This was our background where we literally just swiped through it. This is one where we were dripping, dabbing, did some blending solution on there. And this is one that I just didn't like, so I just kept adding more. And this, of course, was our cleanup. And our cleanup gives me a really, I love just the effect of it. The texture is very cool. All right, so let's lift. So the whole thing about this is that we can lift off of all of these because they're non-porous. And we have the ability, if we want, that we can transfer an image to a porous surface. Well, the most porous surface, of course, is glossy cardstock. So you think, what am I gonna do with all that glossy? It's awesome to stamp on. I can stamp on this, I can stamp on a tag, I can stamp on watercolor paper, I can do whatever I want. We're gonna start with just our background. I'm gonna find a stamp that I wanna use. Probably won't do Halloween. Let's do something, I wanna do something bright, bold. Nothing that I've taken out already. Every single time I think I have all the stamps, I always want what I don't take out. Oh, that's gonna suck. I need to clean that first. Okay, so first rule when it comes to lift is you need to start with a clean stamp. And if you know anything about me, this is the hardest thing ever in my life. It's terrible. But you need to clean it. And I'm just using Archival cleaner. This one's pretty bad. But we'll see how clean I can get it. It's pretty bad. It'll be fine. This cleaner is really quite impressive. I mean, I'm not much of a stamp cleaner guy, but it's pretty awesome. I mean, we're talking probably years of Archival. Just gone. Or stays on or whatever. But really, don't clean your stamp unless you have to. Wow. Probably one more layer, yeah. All right. And the reason we want this clean is we don't want to contaminate our lift pad, because our lift pad, believe it or not, is clear. I'm just gonna go in with some water, because I never like to leave stamp cleaner on my stamp. Stamp cleaners all contain oil, so if you are an avid stamp cleaner and you leave stamp cleaner on your stamp, if you wonder why you're never getting a clear image with your ink, that is because you have stamp cleaner on your stamp. And if you're stamping with distress or anything else, it's water-based. Oil and water don't mix. So we're going to lift. I decided to go to something a little bolder. We're going to do this and actually transfer it. We can use a block. I'm just going to go in and use a platform with this one. All right, I'm going to work with rubber, so I've got that rubber side. Let's take this guy. And I'm really looking at the colors right now. That's what I'm seeing. I'm saying, like, what do I want to do? I actually think I might go this way, because this seems pretty cool. No, but that's predictable, so I'm going to go that way. I want something a little less predictable. All right, that's what I'm going to do. Let's close this up. So our lift ink is going to allow us to go in. What is that? Not bad. All right. We're going to go in and we're going to stamp into our alcohol ink background. It's going to take and pick up that ink, and it's going to lift it off of our background. So just stamp with purpose. Okay? Don't need any CPR. Lift that up. But now my ink is transferred onto my stamp. My alcohol ink is. So I'm going to set this one aside for now. It's not finished. But now I'm just going to take another piece of paper, and if it was cut the same way, and if you measured it and put it the same way, blah, 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 it would line up perfect. Me, just stamp it and cut it later. All right? But here I'm able to take my image and transfer it onto my paper, okay? And what's cool about this, let me just fix this, because some people just can't get past the fact that it doesn't match up. That's what paper trimmers are for. Look, it's like it never happened. All right, so what's cool is that this gave me the ability to lift my ink off of my background and stamp it. And now I've stamped in those amazing blended cool colors that you could never do with a marker. You could never do that, even with your ink pads, to get that vibrancy without the mud. But we still need to lift. We haven't even done that yet. The whole idea of lift ink is that it's going to lift the ink off of your background. It probably gives you, right now I would say, no more than 10 minutes. 10 minutes to do either one, right? You can leave that ink on your stamp for up to 10 minutes so far. You don't really want to wait that long, but you could. So you don't have to do everything bang, bang, bang. Obviously, it's so busy chatting. So what we're going to do to lift is this. Something porous, paper towel, not an ink cloth. It has to be something clean. And I'm just going to start dabbing my image, okay? Now your image is going to just pretty much come into focus. And what we're doing is we're lifting the ink off the background. You can't go in right away and wipe it off. It's not gonna work. It's gonna become a blurry, muddy mess, and you're gonna keep dabbing until you don't see any ink lifting off. Dab, dab. That's why you need a clean paper towel. And once you don't see that, you can simply buff off the excess, and there is our lifted image and our transferred image. All right? So I'll pass those around, and we can keep going.
Like this?
No.
No?
No, this is oil-based. Yeah, it's a crazy, I don't know. I'm not a chemist, but it's brilliant. Yeah, it's something, I invented this technique. I say invented. I stumbled across this technique years ago when I was on the Carol Duvall show. I was stamping in permanent black archival onto a domino, so that was, totally dates me, stamping in dominoes. And I didn't like my image, so I wiped it off. It was on alcohol ink, and the archival actually took away the stamped image. I'm like, this is crazy. I mean, I've shown the archival resist for many years on that, but it always left a color behind. So I said to the chemist, wouldn't it be cool if you could do an archival ink without color? And they said, well, you can't, because what binds that formulation together is a dye. And I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if you had a clear dye? And they're like, you don't understand what a dye is, do you? Like, I do, but wouldn't it be cool? And I love saying that to the chemist because it's just like poking the bear. You know, like, wouldn't it be cool if you could figure that out? And so many years later, he goes, I think I have one of those ink pads that you said you wanted like 5 years ago, that it's like a clear ink pad that does alcohol ink. He goes, but the weirdest thing is, not only does it do the ghosting thing, but it actually grabs the alcohol ink and leaves it on the stamp. What? Yeah, and so Debbie, who works at Ranger, actually figured out that you could stamp with it. And I thought, well, that's impossible. Alcohol ink dries in seconds. There's no way it's going to sit on that stamp and then allow me to get paper and stamp. And it does. And it really just gets better and better when you're choosing different images.
How often does that need to be re-inked?
Not very often, really. I mean, no more than a regular stamp, but I do like a re-inker for stenciling. So I'll show you that. So let's take something that's, I don't know, I think this one's really cool. I like to show you a background, right? I love to show background stamps, and I'll even do a background stamp on, well, he's just gonna be cool, but this one will be a good background. They'll all be good. God, this will be a good one. Okay. See?
The struggles.
So crazy in my head. All right, I don't need this right now. I'm just gonna do a background. The struggle is real. Okay. So here I'm just gonna go in and take a stamp. I take a background stamp. I love using lift, especially on background stamps, because it does some cool things. I don't always stamp my lift, right? Sometimes I just lift for the sake of lifting, meaning I'm just going to take this, stamp onto my background, okay? And so I know I could stamp it, but I'm not going to. I don't need to. So you don't always have to do both parts of it. And this, I'm just going to lift this off. So again, dab, 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 because you don't think anything happened, but it did. You just have to lift it off. And what's cool about this one is it actually looks like the paper has been cracked or shattered. It's so cool. Yeah, it's a good one. It's a really good background. That's why for Halloween I did the crazing one. So I did like a tinier version of this because I love this so much, but I also wanted something really, really fine. Dab, dab, dab. And look at that background. So cool. Yeah, I mean, it looks like it should have texture to it, but it doesn't. And that's the lift. So if you were doing other backgrounds, like let's take this guy. Let's do something cool.
Have fun.
Let's do evolution. I like this guy. He's a pretty awesome one, right? We can take him, we'll stamp on this background, and we will transfer him to alcohol ink cardstock. But you don't have to. Again, if you want to use watercolor paper, you want to use a tag, do whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. But here I'm going to take some lift. I'm going to ink it up. And it's a felt pad, so I like the fact that when I'm stamping, I can stamp with purpose and I don't have to worry about getting all that squishy ink everywhere. But here I'm just going to go in. I'm going to press that down. Now the longer you press your stamp, the more it's going to lift. Does that make sense? Like you're going to go down to white even more. We're gonna peel that off. I've got all my ink on here. I can take this guy. And I love solid stamps, especially on slick paper, because it's gonna create, you're gonna see this background is gonna be kind of mottled. It's gonna look really splotchy. But look at that color. Shut up. That is, and the detail, that's ridiculous.
I need
Like,
that.
that's what I just can't believe. And we haven't even done this yet. Like, it's still gonna lift. But you have to remember, you have to lift it. That's, I mean, I'm getting all these emails of, yeah, your lifting does not work. Send. I'm like, really? Send. Yeah. What are you doing wrong? Well, I stamped it and nothing happened. Well, not until you lift it. Yeah. It's not a self-lifting ink pad. You still have to do it. So we're just gonna go in, dab, dab, dab. Dab, dab, dab. Dab, dab, dab. And we just gotta work this one in, right? It's kind of crazy because it just like develops like a picture. And before you know it, you see him appear. And each time, just find something clean. You have to, because that's the idea. You're taking off ink, but if you don't have a clean paper towel, you're just like putting more ink on. Yeah. And then once you have that, just go ahead and, I love that. It's kind of like granite, like stone background. Now, another cool thing, of course, with Lift is the re-inker, right? The nice thing about having a re-inker, and you could technically do this with the stamp pad, but I think it's way easier if you have a re-inker, is using it with stencils, right? So we can take a background, let's take this one. Let's take a couple of stencils. Here we're gonna take a bit of foam. And let's see, do I have a re-inker? Somewhere. There we go. So this one is what you would use to re-ink your ink pad, right? But I can also put a little bit on there. Ted, orange. Go figure. Oh, he's back. All right. I'm just gonna do what I did with the stamp, but I'll show you with a stencil. Put some of that lift ink on there. We're gonna go there. Now on a stencil, we can dab, we can rub, but what's neat about this is that you can control the amount of pressure, unlike you can with a stamp. So same thing, I have to lift. So cool. But this one, I'm able to get it to fade, right? Because you saw when I did the link, I didn't rub it everywhere. I concentrated here and kind of faded it out. So that's what I love about a stencil, because a stamp you have to push, which means everything is gonna lift the same. But on a stencil, it's pretty awesome with a re-inker. Yeah. So crazy cool. If you want to take some numbers. Let's practice that. All right, put that down. And again, you don't think anything happened, but it will.
You don't have to wait a specific amount of time
Nope.
before you start doing that.
Yeah, you can wait or not wait. Yeah. So that's, I mean, it's super forgiving. It's so, oh, he's back.
So we've got a green cell phone here. If you can describe what's on the screensaver,
Oh no. Yeah, I know. There's some people right away going, keep it. Yeah.
Somebody here.
Yeah. All right. So what's neat about doing backgrounds like this, again, if you go in just with a stamped image, that's what I love about creating backgrounds. I think sometimes not giving yourself that permission to just play with your backgrounds, you're really missing out on how to use your stuff. Oh, dang, where is that stamp? I didn't put it back. I'll find it. It's a big dragonfly. Do you see it? I used it and I didn't put it away. You see it? You see it? See it? I'll find it. Do I want to use it? Yes. Really bad? Yes. There's one. I'll find it. Or not.
Giant flies.
It's pretty.
Oh, did it go?
It's a pretty big dragonfly. Maybe I left it in here.
Did on the tag earlier.
Totally. Where'd I put it? Maybe I put it in here. Usually I like this. I'll get over it. We will go with plan B. Let's use entomology. Alright. We'll just do plan B. I'll use these insects. Entomology. I'll line those guys up. This one I'm going to go with black archival. One of the things, if you do a lot of resist backgrounds, even with lift, keep in mind that if you can somehow in your planning figure out how to put in an image, by adding an image over the top, it really does bring out your layers even more. It's pretty unbelievable how much detail it's going to give you. See, I'm going to really layer up that black. And then I'll go in, I don't want to block for this. Yeah, a lot of times I like to go in just with backgrounds. And if you take it off the block, it gives you kind of a little bit more organic vibe to like where your text can kind of float in and out, right? Then we're just gonna dry this. But simply by adding that black image, see how like now I added a whole nother layer. So I've got this, I've got that lift, and I've got my background. And this could have been embossed, this could really be anything you want. But I really like just this element. And I would probably still crop it, but like to me, that randomness of when I was spraying the alcohol and it just kind of splashed over the top, that's like a bonus. So it does. So that's why like when you're playing, just, you gotta get out of your head, really. I say it every time, the best advice I ever got was just to get over yourself. It seems harsh at first, but, right? But really, if you can just get over yourself, man, you will have the best time when you're making stuff. You just gotta get out of your head. It's hard. It's easier to say than to do, but I think that's it all the time. Absolutely, yeah, I have YouTube videos, Facebook Live. Yeah, everything's on there.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sure. It's fun. All right, let's move on to another product, shall we? This is probably why the dragonfly got lost.
You need somebody to clean it back for you.
It's a hot mess. And this is how I work at home. When I'm working, it's everywhere. But when I'm done for the day, it is like a brand new studio. I clean up everything every day. It's very weird. Even in the middle of a project, I'll clean everything up, and wherever I am on that project, it just sits right there on my mat for the next day. Not weird? It's weird to me. Okay, let's see. All right, let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this. All right, what do we want to work on? I'm not sure. Collage. Any requests? See anything? Resist spray? Anything? No, you don't care? All right.
She wants to see the lift.
We just did the lip. Sorry. Dang. Well, you can see the samples. We can pass them around so you can see what we did with them. Yeah, they're really cool. Yeah. It's like we just did it. Dang it. You tried to tell her, right?
So I have a
All right. Yes.
Is there a reason you went to a circle instead of a square?
Yes, because I find this circle is much easier to work with. It's like a sports car. It really is. Especially in the world of blending. So, I mean, we did it for the blending tool, and I just found that this was just easier to kind of create more of an organic look, especially with alcohol ink, because alcohol ink in general wants to create circles. And so when I'm stamping with a rectangle, a lot of times they were just making these too concentrated shapes. So I just said, hey, if we already have the round blending tool, I think eventually they're just going to get rid of the rectangle, I think, because more people are just going to this. It does make a difference. You'll see you can add a lot more little colors in different areas. It's pretty cool. Let's talk shifters. Let's do that. I'll talk about shifters. If you haven't seen the new Halloween release, one of the things that I released, in addition to the stamps, are these stencils called shifters. And shifters are very cool because it's just this weird idea I had to take a pattern and actually give me the ability to make a colorful repeat pattern, right? I've seen all those fancy scrapbook papers and all that. And like, that'd be cool if we can do that with a stencil. So shifters allow us to create multicolor backgrounds with different colors with a stencil. Here's how it works. Okay. Now these are Halloween, but obviously you can change your palette and do this for Christmas. You can do it for Valentine's Day. You can use these shapes all year long. So when you first get your shifters, they are a die cut stencil with a laser cut repeat. Okay. I can't see that laser cut line, so I have painted my stencils. I go in with a little bit of black distress paint, rub it onto my stencil, wipe it off with a paper towel, and it will leave paint in all of those areas. And that paint is permanent, right? So that's why I use distress paint, because it doesn't matter how many times I ink or go over it, the black will forever be there, right? And it only goes into the recessed areas. Everything else it wipes off of. But here's how we can use a shifter. We will take a piece of paper, use some washi tape. If you have washi tape and you have a distressed crayon tin, it's a great storage tin for washi. I love it. I know. It's cool because I can see it. I can see where the stuff is, and it holds a lot. So here I'm just going to take this. I'm just going to kind of put that just right onto the mat. Put a little bit of tape, top and bottom. Yeah, maybe you don't have washi tape. Maybe you're just really running low on it. Why do we want so much tape? You ask yourself that? The addiction is real. Like with many people, you just see like just one more. I don't think I have that. Yeah, you do. Oh, I like that one. Okay, so here I'm just going to take some tape. Let's do the Harlequins. This will be fine. Oh, probably have ink on there. That's all right. Okay, I'm just going to take this. I'm going to place my stencil down first, wherever you want. We can start in the center. We can go off center. It really doesn't matter. All right. Then we're going to take a color. Now for this, let's just do Halloween, shall we? So let's do something funky. Let's do crushed olive and purple. Yeah. You're like, okay. Yeah. Purple? Sure. Crushed olive just to contour. Those will be really good. All right. We need some foam. So you can do this with your ink pads, whatever you want. But I need 2 pieces of foam. And your blending foams, you guys really remember, they're washable and reusable. Until they crumble apart, wash and reuse them. If you're throwing them away every time, thanks. But you don't have to, but thank you for that. So pick whatever color you want to start with. We're going to ink it up, and then we're just going to go through our stencil like normal. Just ink. Okay, it could be a circular motion. You can do your pouncing. You can fade your color. Doesn't matter. Oxide is just going to be a really quick way to blend. Now, depending on how particular you are, I've been using, they're not out yet, but I've been using the Sizzix new sticky grid. It's like a double stick Post-it note thing. I've been using it under my tag now, so that because now I'm gonna have that washi tape mask, so I'll have to fix it. Oh, it's not Ted. Yeah. All right. I forgot their glasses. It's always a riddle. It's always a riddle with her, right? It's like, there's someone that's gonna be walking to dinner, and I'm like, they're looking for a friend, or, oh, they left their keys. All right, so once we've done a color, we're just gonna lift this off, and we're gonna clean this, okay? Just with water, baby wipe, it doesn't really matter. But we wanna get that first color off of our stencil, okay? Simple, right? Then what we're gonna do is take our stencil. Now this is where we've colored, and all we're going to do is we're going to shift it. And you're going to take that outline, and that outline is going to outline what you just inked. So we can see through our stencil, but I can use the outline on there to make sure everything is lined up, and then I'm going to stick this down. So I've shifted it. And you can shift it to the right, to the left, up, down, doesn't really matter. It's a continuous repeat however you go. And then you're just going to take your next color, and you're just going to go to town. Once you see it, it's like, bing. Until then, you're like, what? And so by doing this, this is going to eliminate the need for masking, for doing anything like that, because now I have a background that has a multicolor repeat. So cool. Yeah, yeah. And if you do dots, same thing. If you do stripes, I designed the stripes where it also created a gap. So I have a third color, right? So I did a color, but I wanted to leave a margin there. So this way when I shift it over and do my next color, it creates that gap in between. So it gives it more of that cool kind of pinstripe look. And of course, the difference between the large and the mini is also in scale. So the nice thing about having the minis is obviously your lines are skinnier. So it will allow me to do, you know, I could still go vertical, but I like the fact that I can go horizontal. Now this guy, the dots actually allow you to do a 4-time shift, okay? So this one, if you didn't want to do, where's our double shift of this one? All right, so this one we understand, right? It's just like I did it before. You did a color, and then you simply shift and you do another color. It's cool, right? It's a cool concept. It was very hard to describe to what I wanted. I'm like, I want a stencil that I can move it and then stencil and it will line up to the first color. And I'm like, I'm not following you. So this shifter, you just start out by doing your regular shift, right? We do our ink, then we shift it and we do our next color. Then once you're done, you have our open space, right? So then you would take your stencil and go into that open space. Easy to line it up because you have columns now. Do your third color, which would be green in this case, and then you would shift it again to black. And that's how you create a 4-color shift. Yeah, they're so much fun. Where do you see Christmas? Because I got shifters for Christmas. They're really fun. It's a cool way to, I think, make pattern paper because although these are very Halloween right now, it's only because of the color. I can do a cool Harlequin for Valentine's Day. I could do great stripes if I wanted to create kind of a cool plaid because let's face it, this can make a killer plaid if you just stencil again the other way. Now you have a gingham check because now we have the ability to alternate colors. It's awesome. But put some black paint on there. It will save you. Because the first time I did it, I'm like, where is it lining up? I can't see it. So those are shifters. I like those. They make me happy, ideas like that. I do. Doesn't happen often, right? But every once in a while you have one of those crazy ideas that just work. So this one I would just cut this off because, like I said, I don't use tags. Tags are paper. So I would just chop this and now it becomes a card back. I will do that right now. With my amazing guillotine. Isn't this the best? This cutter really is. All right. That's a beautiful background. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna throw that in water because I don't need to clean it. And we move on. So next you wanna, what are we doing? Oxide, resist? No, I just don't care. We'll do blending brushes. What's that? These? Oh. We don't want to know. They are called DIY distress pads. Right? So we released these a couple years ago, and what it is an empty distress pad that you fill it yourself. Right? So it's DIY, so you can take, that's why it's called a custom blend. So it starts out blank. You take any of your re-inkers, make whatever color combos you want. The inks never migrate together. Like once 2 colors touch each other in that ink pad, they just stay in their lane. It's just the nature of ink. But then you can create a custom blend. So once I do my blend, and how you would do it is get a re-inker. Not sure what colors are here. I'll just make new colors. So at home, if I didn't like this, you could run this under the sink and your color would rinse out and you could start again. Okay, but I'm gonna kind of follow Ted. I'm guessing it's going this way because I can see that's a lighter color, but pretty much you would just go in with whatever colors you have. You would drag it across the felt, just like that. Okay, and I would repeat this with all of my colors, right? Makes sense? Just with an ink pad. Then when you're done, you would take some type of scraping tool. It could be a squeegee, a credit card, any kind of scraper, room key, but you have to push ink into the pad. Okay, so I'm just going to work that into my ink pad. And that's the thing, anytime you re-ink any ink pad you own, most people don't re-ink their pads properly because you forget to put the ink in the pad. You're only putting ink on the pad, which means when you drizzle your re-inker with anything, you still have to take that and push it into the pad. Otherwise it will just sit on top. So a lot of people when they get an ink pad, they'll take their re-inker and do their little zigzag and put the lid on it, and then when you go to use it, it's like dark and light, because that's where you put the ink. The ink is suspended, so whatever little zigzag, if you did a smiley face, you would literally see a smiley face. Because ink just sits there. That's why you don't have to store ink any way you want. You can store it upside down, right side up, on its side. It's just there. So when you drizzle ink on an ink pad, if you don't push it down into the ink pad, it's literally suspended on the top. So you've got to push that in there. But what's nice about this, of course, is that it's just going to give me just a cool blend. I don't know about Ted's blend. Oh, this is a nice earthy blend, right? Beautiful. So if you wanted to stamp in a blend, you could take your favorite stamp, whatever that is, and if you just stamp it, you just kind of follow the lines, put it on your block. In this case, I'll use my archival case, because you can, but you can stamp with a blend. So it's really nice that if you have different colors, you can just make your own color blends. But now I've been getting a little, I don't know, kind of wacky, and I've been making blends of ink and oxide in the same pad, because it makes some pretty cool backgrounds. All right, but they're beautiful, huh? And then to get the lid, you just take the ink pad and rub it on the label, because the label's white. And then you wipe it off, and then you've just indexed your pad. Simple, but cool. That's why I said you don't want to know, because they're very addicting. They are. They're super addicting to make beautiful blends, because you're going to have your, you know, like this, I use it every fall. Like, it makes the best leaves when you stamp. Yeah, because I don't have to put, you know, when you go in and do all those colors, and sometimes I don't even make a rainbow pad. I'll make a drip drop pad. Like if I'm going to do like this new set of these leaves, maybe I don't want my leaves to have stripes in them. So I have a custom blend at home where I drip like green here, I did a line of orange, and I just pretty much dripped all the different colors until it filled it in like a puzzle, but then it doesn't have a defined shape. So then when I go and ink the stamp, it's modeled, but you don't see lines. Yeah. I know, I told you don't want to know about these, because you make them and then you're like, oh, I need to make another one. Yeah, I need to make another blend of pink and purple, and just before you know it, you have more. I have more stupid blends than I have colors of distress. I'm like, just one more, this will be a really good one. Yeah. I'm trying to convince Ranger, like, I want replacement stickers, because you can rinse it out, but now you don't have another sticker. Like, so you're kind of stuck with this color. Yeah. Because then it's just like the everlasting gobstopper. Okay, let's get into oxide. You guys scared? No? Okay.
You just wipe the pad on top of the sticker to get the color?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So all you do is just,
Swipe it?
yeah.
Okay.
You just take that and just rub it right across the top, and then wipe it with a paper towel, and then it stays on there.
So what's the difference?
Lee Wilkins, back in the coaching room. We're happy to tell you we have your bags.
What do you got?
What is the difference between the regular distress inks and the distress oxide?
We're totally going there.
Okay.
See? Well done. Good question. Okay, we're going to talk about oxide. We're going to get you introduced to really what you can do with these. There's some pretty awesome things. So first thing to know when it comes to the ink world, there are two types of colorants. There's a dye or a pigment. Okay? Dye is translucent, we can see through it. Pigment is opaque, we cannot see through it. So when you look at different stamp pads, they're either going to be a dye or a pigment. It's what their base is that I think makes them all different. Like we'll go into Extreme Distress and Archival. Well, this is a water-based dye, this is an oil-based dye. So it's waterproof, stays on. It's a solvent-based dye. So when you get into those kind of chemistries, you have to just really read the label. But what makes Distress different is that it is an ink that is designed to be reactive with water. Meaning when it gets wet, most dye inks, when they get wet, they will blend. This will actually wick. This will get away from itself. So if I put color down and I wet it, it wants to get away from itself. So it moves in an outwards position. That's what makes this ink different than regular water-based inks. It has the ability to blend, it has the ability to emboss, it has the ability to do all that, but it actually becomes more intense when you wet it. And any other water-based ink, when you wet it, it actually dilutes the color. So that right away is what made Distress, okay? But then we wanted to get into oxide, because what I've done is, when I work with my inks, I love working with Distress. I love the colors of them. I love the that vintage yet vibrant look. However, because it is a dye, you are limited into its function. Dyes are translucent, so if I go into a dark surface, I'm gonna lose that wow factor of my inks. So I said to the chemist, wouldn't it be cool if you could make a pigmented version of Distress ink? And he said, oh, you want a pigment pad? I'm like, I don't want a pigment pad. I don't like pigment pads. Pigment pads are normally that spongy, pad that's glycerin based, it's really greasy, it groups up your stamps, it takes forever to dry. I just don't like it. I said, no, what I want, I'll try to find the same color so I'm not cheating. What I want is a pigmented version of distress. Take distress and add pigment to it. It's like, you're crazy. Pigment and dye, they can't exist. That's why they have dye and pigment pads. It's like oil and vinegar, right? You can mix it up in the lab, but once they're in there, they're gonna separate, they're gonna settle. I said, well, wouldn't it be cool if you could figure that out, how to do that? And that was, I think, over 5 years, I think it took them to develop this formulation, of them actually working on it, because I really thought it would be so awesome if you could somehow add pigment to distress. And that's where oxides came in. Oxides are a fusion of dye and pigment. It's the same felt pad, so it's not foam, but it actually contains dye and pigment. But because of its formulation, first of its kind, super complex, it cannot live on a small substrate. So people right away, they're like, oh, I want the mini oxide. It can't, because when it's this small, they do separate. The dye and the pigment separate again, and you can't mix it back up. You can see like in the re-inkers, right? There's your oxide re-inker. Resin, dye, pigment, right? That's what it wants to do. But of course, a re-inker, I can shake it up. Can't shake an ink pad, right? So it's not gonna work. So that's kind of the downside, but I don't think so, because I mean, I still use regulation size distress at home. I mean, minis are great for travel, but if you're an inker, this is a pain. Like if I'm doing a card and I don't have a regulation size walnut stain ink pad, I'm like, I can't be bothered. But to each his own. But just know, for people that are kind of doing the waiting game, waiting for mini oxides, it took 10 years for them to figure out how to put distress in a mini ink pad, so who knows. I'll never say never, but I'm not holding my breath. Oxides have the same intensity because we're dealing with a pigment, right? But it is a pigment with a dye, which means when I wet it, it's still going to react, but this is going to oxidize, which means there's something in here that we've added that will actually make it turn white as it dries. Oxidize gives it that really cool distress look. And this little swatch shows you distress ink with water, oxide with water. And different colors, the more water you add, the more it will oxidize. Do you always have to wet it? No, you could just stamp with oxide, it's a pigment ink, and off you go. You can emboss with it the same way you emboss. So if you wanted to, let's say, stamp in Salty Ocean on a craft tag and emboss it in clear embossing powder, you'll have this bright, vibrant blue embossed design. So you can use it really on anything that you want, but just know that the effect is going to be quite different. Like frayed burlap's crazy when it oxidizes. Kind of gets a little green. And although this looks like it would be chalky and rub off, it doesn't. It's an oxide. And every time you wet it, it will continue to oxidize. So if you just added more water and more water and more water, it will continue to oxidize again and again. But it has its benefits, so that's what I'm going to demo, because it actually has some really cool perks or features as to what you can do with it. So we're going to go in and work, and we know already that we're going to work on this for our inks, because we don't want to make a muddy mess. So I'm just going to go in with my ink pads, and I'm going to press them down onto the craft mat. Remember, ink is suspended, so in order to get ink out of the pad, you must press down on the pad, right? You can't just touch it. You touch it, you're not going to have enough ink that comes out. You need to press some of that ink out of there. And your ink pads hold a ton of ink, really. Most people, I think, over ink their ink pads because they just expect them, like when they touch them, to just ooze out magic, and it doesn't. All right, let's put some colors down. We're going to take some water, spray that, take our tag. Now we're going to go in and learn about layering. You're going to make a print, and you're going to get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. Okay, when you're doing any kind of inking, really, you got to remember, yeah, you need a shirt that says that. Here's why. Wet on wet will blend, and wet on dry will layer with any medium you have. So if you're using wet inks or wet paints or wet oxides, if you put wet into wet, it will blend together, right? If you ever do watercolor, you know that working on that wet thing, you get these beautiful blends of color, these unpredictable colors. But wet on dry layers. So just drying it with a heat tool, it's still not totally dry. It's not crispy dry, but it's dry enough. Now when I go back in, that is just going to layer on top of what I did. It's not going to mix or blend with what I did before. Now, oxides are very unique in the fact that because it is a pigment and it's opaque, it can sit on top of each other indefinitely without ever making mud, right? If you have distress ink, if you put orange over green and you see through them, you have a beautiful shade of brown. Brown. But if you don't like brown, oxides are really going to be that kind of game changer, but you still have to follow the rules. If you don't go in and at least dry those layers, you will end up with mud. Now my rule is if you look, you dry, right? So if you're dabbing around and you're like, what am I doing? Well, you're drying it right now is what you're doing. And I look at my palette and I see what's going on. So if it looks like mud, it is, right? So if you don't like the way something is going, just get rid of some of that and introduce some new flavors. I think I want some more pink, right? I want to put some more picked raspberry down. You can't contaminate your oxide, so don't worry about where you put a color. Let's do a little abandoned coral here. All right. We go in, add a little water. So here I've got a big green mucky mess. I'm going to put some pink, I'm going to put some coral, and we're just going to start building these layers up. Now, if you want a different color there, like it's driving you crazy, well, just get over that, and then you can cover it. But some people just, you're so in your head about one spot, just then cover it up so you can move on. We're gonna add another little layer right here. Add a little bit of water. We can always take off some layers. All right. And notice when I'm putting those layers on, I'm just kind of tapping around different areas. There we go. I like that background. That's a good one. And that's using a lot of color. Do you have to use all these colors? No. You can use one color, two colors, as many as you want. In fact, one color does a pretty cool background just in and of itself. So here's what I want to show you with oxide. Every time we add a layer, even every time we add water, it's going to oxidize more. So even if you layer it and you think, ooh, I want it to be more oxidized, more chalky, you can see that every time I add water, see how that color is kind of getting more of that milky haze when it dries? It oxidizes more and more. That's what it's designed to do, which I think is pretty fantastic. If I just drip water on, it too will only oxidize in those little tiny areas. Or I could lift it off, kind of create those little bleach spots. All right, there's one background, simple. And oxide really has kind of a, I mean, you can feel it. It's almost like a suede paper, like feel-o-vision. Yeah. But it's suede. It has a soft feel to it. So let's go and talk about some different ways that we can use oxide. Well, if we're going to use oxides, we can use them for blending, right? If we want to do some backgrounds, we can use our ink blending tool and blend. If we want to layer oxides, those have a really kind of cool, unique way of doing some backgrounds. I'm going to take one color. This time it happens to be peeled paint. And I'm just going to go in and do the same exact thing. I'm going to make a print, add a little bit of water, dry it, and just using a single color, if you remember to dry and layer, you will create beautiful, beautiful effects with one color. And that's what I always try to tell people. We all have our favorites, what colors we like, what colors we want to work with. Have you ever tried just using one color? If you remember to layer it with water, you will get so much depth with your favorite color that you wouldn't need all those other matchy-matchies. That's the thing, because you think, oh, if I do this background, I need peeled paint, but then I need some crushed olive to make it look more yellow. I should get a little forest moss. Yeah, you can do all of that, but if you just dry your layers and add water to it, you're going to achieve that with an oxide, because it's going to build up on top of it, though. It's going to always create that. And again, if I splash water on it, that's just going to make this even more mottled. It's totally up to you. It's a cool background. So I'll do this a lot for like underwater things, if I'm doing, you know, a sky, if I'm doing ground, any kind of background. All right, fill that in, fill that in. All right. Fill in the blanks. Done. See? That's a cool background with a color. So any of your favorite colors, if you like picked raspberry, if you like rusty hinge, whatever, just try it. Take that out, spray it with water, and just keep going in dry layers. You'll amaze yourself with how cool of a background you're going to get, and how many different kind of colors reveal themselves from a single color. You know, you're going to see the yellows, the browns, whatever's in there. Okay, so let's talk about what happens when we change our background. Let's do that. That's a good one. Like a shirt like that. Okay, what happens if we change our substrate? Right now this is just paper, cardstock. What happens if we go shiny? All right, we're gonna go into alcohol ink cardstock. We're gonna take a little bit of gloss, shiny paper. Now we know from our alcohol ink demo earlier, if you were around for that, that this is the most porous paper. So we're gonna use that to our advantage. We're gonna take some colors, we're gonna place them down, and you don't have to be as crazy as I am with colors. I use all these colors when I'm demoing because I just like to show people that you just don't have to overthink the ink. You know, there are so many people that are just, they're frozen about using their ink because I don't know what colors go together. Honestly, if you're working with oxide, you cannot screw it up because you're gonna be able to layer it. So use what you like at first, but the key is that you put that in, you lift it off, and you dry it. You don't care what it looks like. You can't worry about that because you will make mud. If you go in and double dip, you're gonna make mud that second time. So just dry it. But this paper is going to look totally different with oxide. All right, I'm gonna take that, splash around here. Now see, right away, I'm kind of getting a little mud there. Yep, a little mud there, just clean it up. The media mat is your friend. It really is. But how great is it that I have a workspace? Because see, I just shove everything off and I can't jump back. It's so nice. It is, I mean, it's a game changer. I can't say it enough. I would say in my 17 years of doing this, there hasn't been a tool that has impacted my crafting more, which is weird. Yeah, it's just changed the way I can make. I have a space, I've got a place to work, place to make a mess. It's totally changed for me.
She uses her bed.
Yeah, that's it. Nice. Here I'm just going to take this now. As I build my layers, I'm really starting to pay attention as we build up because remember the opacity of this ink is going to start sitting on there. So kind of use some of your favorite colors. Here I'll take, and you don't have to use much of it because our background is pretty much done. Let's go in, let's throw in something bright. What do I got? Oh, that's a good one. All right, let's use a little more persimmon back here. And I'm looking for, let's do a little twisted citron. Okay. And a little peacock feathers, just because we can. Okay. So a little bit of water. We're in the home stretch with this one. I'm gonna go in and just make our prints. Print, print, print. So that totally changed it. It was getting a little murky. Putting those brighter colors on there really brought that back. But you'll see that as we add these layers, our glossy paper, our surface that was so shiny and so bright is not so much anymore. But that's okay, we're gonna fix that. All right, I'm finished. I'm gonna get rid of this, because if I don't clean this, I won't be finished. Take it out of my way. Yeah, I will. I know me. If I don't get rid of it, I'll be like, oh, just one more time. Something magical is gonna happen. All right, so here's what we've got. We've got a background that we have oxidized to death. We've put so many layers, so many colors, and we've gone from a very shiny paper to a very not so shiny paper. And the thing about this paper is glossy cardstock is a clay coated paper, but it's very porous. And what happens with oxide is that the dye soaks into the paper, but the pigment can't. So if I touch this paper, that oxide is going to come off. It doesn't come off on your other papers, but on glossy, it comes off, which gave me the idea of how do I get rid of this oxide? So my first thing, I licked it, tried a little spot, came off, but then it oxidized again. Then I thought, ooh, a baby wipe, and I wiped it down, and then it oxidized again, because remember, every time it gets wet, it reoxidizes. So if you have a product called Distress Microglaze, that's this little stuff. Distress Microglaze is what you put over Distress to make it permanent, right? You can rub a little bit on this background, and that background would be waterproof. I could put it over anything that I've created, it becomes waterproof. But Distress Microglaze is pretty awesome because it's going to allow me to actually change this background, okay? The microglaze it's kind of like Vaseline, but it evaporates. It has a solvent in it, believe it or not. So if you own this, make sure that when you're using it, always keep the lid on it, because it will, you won't think it will because you think, oh, it's like Vaseline, it'll be fine. No, it'll evaporate. You'll have an empty jar. But we're gonna take some of this microglaze and we're gonna completely change this background, right? We're gonna go from a very chalky background to a very vibrant background, believe it or not. So here we go. I'm just gonna start applying that glaze, and that glaze is lifting off that oxide and revealing every colorful layer that we applied to this paper. And it's going to make our background completely permanent now. So even though it was distress ink, we're back to a glossy paper that is completely stampable, it's totally dry, we can journal on it, do whatever we want, but now we've got these really vivid, rich layers of color to work through. So just by changing my paper, I was able to give Oxides just a new finish. I still had that ability to layer because of pigment, but I got that really vibrant layer because I was able to microglaze over the top of it. That's pretty cool. I do love this. All right, we're gonna do one more tag and then I'm gonna take a break. So we're going to layer oxide and ink because I think that's important. I always like to show people that when we're doing this, it is important to kind of mix and match your colors. So I think for this, I'm gonna start with just some dyes, something warm and cool. That's the easiest way to get it, but honestly, sky's the limit as far as how you want to layer these. But just because we have oxides, don't forget about your distress ink or even your distress stain, right? Because we've got some really great layers of color on this one too. We're gonna use this and a little picked raspberry. All right, I'm gonna start my background, a little bit of water. I'm gonna go in here. I'm gonna spray some of this. I'm gonna spray some of this. I'm gonna add some ink to this. And I'm still gonna layer. All right, I just need something dark. All right, so here I added a little bit of stain. Why? Stain is the most fluid version of distress. Quick way to get a real good pop of color. Otherwise you would be layering, layering, layering. So if you have stains, man, it's fast. It's a really fast way. All right, but in order for me to build any intensity, I still have to dry this, right? Even though I'm sticking with warm colors, if I don't dry it before I go in, it's not gonna make this look any different. Pretty background. Makes me want a cocktail. Close. A little mahogany in there. It's gonna give it that little punch of color. I love those little dots when that happens. I wish it would happen more. And then for a little texture, I'm just gonna add some water. Anytime you add water to distress after it's dry, it creates a whole different background. All right, cool. That's our warm layer. So our dyes, as you can see, really intense in their color, really vivid. So that's going to allow us to now layer with some oxide. So now I'm going to take some colors of oxide, put a few colors down. I can multitask. All right, I'm going to spray with some water. And now I'm just going to take this background and we're just going to layer some pigment over the top of it. Okay? And that's what's really great about combining dyes and pigments, right? Our dye is going to be that vivid undertone, and because the oxides contain some pigment, it'll sit on top. If we did all dye, blue on top of red is going to be purple. It's not going to be blue. This will stay. And what I like about this is it does give you a different look than just doing all oxide. So don't be afraid to mix and match. They really are quite fun when you start doing that.
What you could always do is distress first. Distress ink.
Correct, yeah.
Oxide on top.
Correct, because the dye couldn't sit on top of the pigment. Pigment dominates dye, wins the fight. Yeah. But it's really nice because we get those beautiful undertones of color. We get that kind of cool, milky opacity of an oxide. And it's really fun to mix and match. And again, even if it's a single color. So you could have done that same thing with that, where you started your base with peeled paint ink, and then just did like a little peeled paint oxide, and you get that punch of color with the oxidation. Hence why I've been doing these little mixes, because it's like, I love the punch of color, I love the opacity of oxide, so it's almost like amping up the oxide. Does that make sense? Like, I'm kind of adding more dye than I should, but it makes for a really cool background. It really does, because something like that, I mean, that's awesome. It's such great color. And it looks like it's super complicated, but it wasn't. Yeah, pretty awesome. Pretty cool background. And again, we're going for something that's just all chalky and smooth to something really vivid. Yeah?
Now, if you did your glaze on top of that,
Yes?
is it going to, how's it going to affect that? Is it going to affect your oxides different? Like on this one here,
On
if
this
you
one.
did that glaze, the distressed glaze.
Nothing.
That one you did your signature base, right?
Because
Yes.
it's not glossy. And it's because the
Correct.
oxides on top.
Yep.
But it makes it permanent.
It does. It will make this permanent. So this is now permanent. I didn't do microglaze here, but I can microglaze the whole thing and then the tag will be permanent, but it would still allow me to do something on this. So I could still do another layer of ink. I could still do, and I could put distress on this. I could stamp on it, I could journal it, but everything underneath is done. It's set. It won't move at all.
So your archival black, if you wanted to do a large stamp on top of that, it would
Yes,
hold okay.
absolutely. Yeah, the only reason that paper became shiny is because it was shiny. Yep, it's not gonna make it shiny. But I mean, microglaze has some really cool effects. For example, you can take microglaze. Where is that microglaze foam? Here it is. Like I can take that, take a stencil. Oh gosh, I'll just do plus signs. And I could go over a background with a stencil. And that is immediately permanent. So if I take another color, whether it's oxide, whether it's ink, doesn't really matter. Okay. I can dry it and I can do another layer. Yeah, it's awesome. It's really awesome stuff. It's that, so it's a sealer, but it's really an instant resist. It's immediate. There you go. Yeah. And there's nothing on it. There's no wax, there's nothing sticky, nothing. So, all right, that was good. I need to take some of this ink off of my hands. That's gonna do my job. Cool. I'll probably do, what time does this end? 4:30? Yeah, I might come back for a quick demo after I walk, and I need to take off a couple layers. If you don't have this, this will change your life. Change your life. It's called Scrubby, and it's a soap with a scrubby in it. He sells them here. And this will take all of this off in a matter of 3 minutes. All of it. Yep. It takes off grease, paint, archival, gesso, glue, but not your skin. Yeah. That's what I use. Diane uses. Wendy uses. You just use
Where do
it.
we get that from?
Ted sells it. He sells it here. Yeah. Yeah. You're welcome. Everything about it. It's a great workspace. It's a great palette.